Let's take a live look at the streets of Los Angeles right now as hundreds of U.S. Marines and thousands of National Guard members are being deployed to quell protests over immigration raids. President Donald Trump sent the troops despite the objections of local and state leaders, and tonight the federal government doubling down on reinforcement. It's now sending an additional 2,000 National Guard troops, a move that state leaders will now be challenging in court. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us for Katu News at 4. I'm Deborah Now.
And I'm Rick Asway. It's the fifth day of protests, and there is no sign of stopping yet. We want to get right to Katu's Barry Mangold with what is happening right now. Barry, what's the very latest?
Know about the events unfolding. Three key things to know about everything that's happening right now. First, hundreds of Marines are now in L.A. and could be there for the next 2 months. Second, California officials, as you mentioned, are criticizing the president's decision to send them there in the first place, and protests over what's happening have spread across the country, including here in Portland. Los Angeles police officers and California National Guard members in riot gear holding the line as anti-immigration enforcement protesters continue those demonstrations in L.A., taking over streets. And President Trump federalized the Guard and ordered U.S. Marines to L.A. to protect buildings from vandalism there. Meantime, California leaders are telling the president that the LAPD had the situation under control and that calling on the military is an unnecessary escalation. California Governor Gavin Newsom filing an emergency motion in federal court to block National Guard members and Marines from assisting with immigration raids. Newsom took to X, writing, quote, "Trump is turning the U.S. military against American citizens." Meantime, L.A. Mayor Karen Bass is condemning bad actors from another night of immigration enforcement protests.
The violence and the damage is unacceptable. It is not going to be tolerated, and individuals will be arrested and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And no individual that is involved in vandalism should think because they went home that night that they're off scot-free.
Meanwhile, Mayor Bass is calling on the White House to end ICE raids in the city. She also refutes claims from President Trump that the National Guard helped quell protests. She says that the National Guard was only assigned to protect the federal building downtown, and local law enforcement conducted crowd control. The big question for many folks now, how will the situation come to an end? We're going to continue to watch how everything plays out. For now, back to you guys.
Barry, thank you for that. The answer to that question is certainly up in the air tonight. The president did weigh in on the situation while delivering remarks at Fort Bragg this afternoon.
In Los Angeles, the governor of California, the mayor of Los Angeles, they're incompetent, and they paid troublemakers, agitators, and insurrectionists. They're engaged in this willful attempt to nullify federal law and aid the occupation of the city by criminal invaders. That's what it is. They're invaders, no different. Their position is that the rioting will not stop unless ICE withdraws from Los Angeles and ceases the enforcement of federal immigration law.
Well, Katu's on your side with what's happening right now and how the situation got to this point.
Once again, it's the fifth day of protests in L.A. It started Friday. ICE conducted a series of enforcement operations across Los Angeles Friday. Protests started that afternoon, in some cases where the arrests were happening. There was eventually a standoff with police outside a detention center. LAPD used tear gas to break up the crowd.
And on Saturday, President Trump mobilized the National Guard. He claimed the protests were a rebellion against the government's authority. California Governor Gavin Newsom said the situation was under control, but the president sent troops anyway. Crowds cleared by midnight.
By Sunday, about 300 National Guard troops deployed to the city. Thousands of protesters gathered in downtown. Hundreds blocked off a freeway. The police chief said people threw rocks and shot fireworks at officers.
On Monday, ICE carried out more immigration raids across the wider metropolitan area. Protesters once again took to the streets. Also on Monday, President Trump mobilized thousands of additional troops to the city. Local officials filed a lawsuit against Trump over the situation. Now, the scene unfolding in Los Angeles has prompted protests really all across the country, including right here in Portland. Groups have been gathering outside the ICE facility in South Portland for a few days. Last night, there were peaceful protests in the evening, but we did see other demonstrators later at night. Portland police arrested 2 people at the building on Sunday for criminal mischief. Looking statewide, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek says there are no plans to deploy the National Guard in Oregon. Within the last 24 hours, she blasted the Trump administration for deploying the Guard to California without the request of Governor Gavin Newsom. As we've mentioned, President Trump says he sent the Guard to L.A. to protect federal law enforcement from what he called attacks of a violent mob. This story is developing by the minute. We're on your side with complete coverage of the situation. Stay with us for live updates throughout the hour.